What's going on, everyone? Hope you guys are having a wonderful time. My name is Ethan. I go by Lord Ethan, and I am a 6-year Overwatch collegiate varsity coach. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some low masters tank gameplay. This is going to be a player called Spray, and they mention in their post that they've got games like these sometimes where they genuinely don't know what to do. They mention, I noticed my team was doing great while I was getting hard diff by the enemy Doom. By the way, I usually, if I'm doing the short replays, just where I'm not spending an hour looking at these codes, which we're going to end up doing as a premium service. But if we're just like kind of rambling over, I'm usually note-taking, and I've got some things to say about that, right? So anyways, getting hard diff by the enemy Doom. I'm not sure how to deal with him as Diva Monkey since I'm not confident in playing Hog. Notice to my positioning, decisions, and timing was horrendous as well. I'd appreciate any help. So absolutely, I can't wait to help, and honestly, there's some great things to take away from this fight. Just a little thing, don't let your shield break, and don't worry too much about making sure that you're getting these damage right. This is an important time to be looking around you and making sure that the Doomfist isn't jumping you with a punch there. I also want to mention that, you're on high ground, and you are also like stacked right up on top of your team, right? So because you're stacked right on top of your team, you guys are able to deal the damage that you need to dispatch this Doomfist, but you guys are also all eligible to like get punched and stomped and yeeted around on high ground because by him, right? Ultimately, one of my notes here, and this is something we probably managed to kind of like break down a little more in logical detail if we did one of the long form VOD reviews on this, but your best bet as Sigma here to kind of giving yourself the best options is going to be playing in positions that Doomfist wants to go through and not spend time in, right? So be careful about charging the punch. That's going to be your easiest counterplay to him. There's going to be a couple of times to mention that you can kind of engage into that. And it's interesting how, fight after fight, you're here on this high ground for 2 consecutive fights when like there is all this map for you to use. There's health packs, there is long sight lines, short sight lines, and again, at the end of the day, you don't have to be occupied with what the Doomfist is doing. He has things that he wants to do against you, right? And you want to not be playing into those, which means at times your best bet is actually going to be not totally ignoring him, but just marking him and then moving on, right? Start the high ground here. Fighting the Doomfist on low ground doesn't service any particular ends, and it doesn't help to establish any conditions. When Widow's on the high ground, she's been up there as well, and was easier punished a little bit ago before her other team had come up. You just kind of timing your Sombra as well by being in and then kind of being out a little bit and then going back in, which puts you kind of at an overexertion here. It sets you up to die. Honestly, you never have to commit an overcommit or even commit into or you can commit, but into a position that isn't as inferior as the one that you were in, if instead you just go up onto that high ground right when you can, right? That's going to give you the best info, the clearest angles, and as well, it's a position, right? The Doomfist wants to be in, not setting up on high ground, right? So you spending time in like a setup spot on high ground for Diva, for Sigma, for Winston, right? Those might also be positions that either A, you're going to be able to see what the Doom is doing, or it's going to be B, a position where like if the Doom dives on you, you can just leap out of there and not have to play into the counterplay. But again, if it's a position that Doom doesn't want to spend time in himself, right? Like a choke point, like you would imagine on King's Row. The Doom does want to spend a little bit of time in chokes to build that power block, which he's using against you guys right now. Then at the end of the day, you want to be controlling the positions that are really less comfortable for him to play in and that are more for moving through. I think your Ana's dead, and so you really just want to not worry about the defense matrix usage here and just go on the soldier. I think the defense matrix in general is like just a little bit on the curious side of things as well. You want to make sure that you're using the defense matrix to block specific damage instances or specific types of damage here. So making sure that you're keeping your armor from being chipped away at opportunities where there's big moments of burst damage, but like you just flickered the defense matrix like in front of a Genji who's deflecting, right? So your opportunities to use defense matrix are probably a little bit earlier when the initial instances of damage are going to be dealt against you, right? As the enemy is marking and scouting and trying to figure out how to play around you. And then of course, it's too much time spent on the low ground here. You do have an objective to control, but you also don't give yourself the opportunity between boosters to like figure out where your next good spot to play is, right? So we end up kind of a lot of nowhere concentrated around the objective, and instead of a lot of different places all at once, right? All at the same time. Also, just a very little thing. I probably stand in the doorway there and let him punch me so that he stops in the doorway and doesn't get to go past me out to the open where he's able to escape. That's a really little thing. And honestly, it's why I really want to do more of the long VOD reviews, is because that gives us an opportunity to like talk about, you know, like all of the little things like that, right? We were going to get to this at one point eventually. There's a lot going on here, by the way, so it's really unfortunate. We won't be able to capture or talk about everything here. We're starting from the low ground, but we're also, it's really interesting how far out we're starting from the objective. I know that was just complaining about us being on the objective, right? Playing nowhere and then going nowhere after that, right? Spending time in nowhere instead of somewhere, right? Which is everywhere all at once at all times on Diva. We end up in a position where we are kind of constantly moving backwards as Diva, right? When that's kind of counterproductive to the way that she wants to play, right? Look at you moving further out, right? We're going to turn around and we're going to back up again here, I'm willing to bet, are we? Let's see. So we could play this corner. We could absolutely play this corner, brawl things out. Yeah, but look at the Doomfist just draw us back when, like, their DPS are now free to shoot us in the back because we're turning around on the Doomfist, like, helping an Ana who is going to die anyways, right? It's also really interesting that you aren't you're defense matrixing the Doomfist in front of your Ana instead of the DPS who are following up on the Doomfist that you could be in front of anyways, right? If I'm playing Genji, if I'm playing Soldier, the last thing I want this Diva doing that I'm playing against is standing in front of my face, holding right click, preventing me from following up with my Doomfist. And also, they're running Kiri and Juno, so that's more damage that you can just eat up. No, you don't want to be eating it from positions like this where there are like a couple of different angles out in the open, and that's one of the DMs that I've actually really liked. This is also an engage that I really like. See how this engage, these picks that you get aren't off of you getting led out by the Doomfist for some arbitrary nonsense like trying to DM your Ana against the punch combo that he's gonna line up, right? So instead of having to play so passive, so defensive, right? And I'm not asking to trade backlines. Sitting here and going, oh well, it's just about trading backlines, right? It is kind of a really myopic way to look at it, because honestly, that's kind of contingent on your supports playing in a way that they have to be traded or that it is good for them to be traded, right? And it's about all kinds of things. So I'm not saying trade backlines, but like you could be more in. It's always better in than out. I'm glad I get an opportunity in this VOD review to say that. It's always better to go in, to force them to look at you, to draw aggro, to make sure that that you have multiple angles on them and that you reduce the amount of angles that they have on you. And also, in is going to put you past the Doomfist, right? Past the positions that he wants to leap through. I don't think eating that punch is quite the play, the same way that I do like the idea of eating another punch. He does lead you from one position to the next as far as like spots that are tough to play. I like that we get the self-destruct off, that we had that for the elimination there. Our team kind of pops off here. And we do get some really nice damage onto the Yari, right? But we're going onto like squishy targets. We're not peeling for our team. And I understand that like part of Diva's kit is peeling, but like it's peeling because Diva can be everywhere all at once at all times and has some of the most broken utilities in the game. But it's not that, that isn't her role, right? Her role is still a dive tank. With this nano, you still want to go in, right? Past the Kitsune. Let the Juno go after you can't kill her, because they're doing so much damage to your back there. So this is just a little bit of like the damage taken timings, damage sensitivity that you have to have on the tank roll, especially since you have this defense matrix perk, right? You want to make sure that like if you're losing damage, you are in a position or able to like whip around and just eat that damage to, I think it restores health, right? So you want to make sure that that's what you're doing. It's really interesting though. You mentioned in the description like kind of getting diffed by this Doomfist, and it's true. He's engaging a lot in a lot of counterplay against you. Also because you're kind of making it a little easier for him to do it. If I'm talking everywhere all at once at all times, by the way, on Diva, see how we end up here, and then we end up back here on our next boosters, and then we're going to end up in this position to get DMAC'd again, right? It could have left all the way behind them when Doom was fighting our Sombra over here. Could have DM'd our Sombra and then started over here, right? We could have leapt over to this high ground and forced the Sim to turn around so that she's not microing us here. So we got like a lot of options, but we're not using this character who is like full of mobility, who is full of damage mitigation, right? We're just standing in front of 5 people who are all kind of angling around us and trying to eat like the spare change of damage that people have, as opposed to jumping behind them, where literally all of them now have to turn and focus their attention onto one angle, right? My defense matrix is more powerful there, my scouting is more free there, stuff like that. Anyways, I want to go back to Getting hit by the Doom. He's absolutely engaging into like a lot of counterplay against you. Again, partially because you are looking to remain like focused on like peeling for your team and making sure that he takes plenty of pressure. It is really important to shoot the tank, but it's important to shoot the tank like at the times and the positions from which you can. With Doomfist, you want to shoot him between the stages of his ability cycling, because that's where he's going to generate the overhealth and like have his traversal options, right? So is he going in? Is he going out? Who is he going in? Stuff like that. So, and really, at the end of the day, he's going to do whatever he wants, right? You could be doing other things. You could be making Soldier's life more difficult. You could be going to take control of Mega Packs. You could be just drawing aggro, being like, oh, hello, I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here now. And then everyone's looking at you instead of the rest of your team, right? So you do have options. We're about to see one this time right now. And I'm going to boil this one down to like too passive, right? Get active, right? And I'm not saying to like run it down and feed onto someone here, but you're about to have an idea here. You're about to look over, see a Genji all by himself in a stairwell, and you are not going to leap him, right? And this is after, like, kind of overeating the damage. And then you leap the Doomfist, who has counterplay against... Like, what do you think a Doomfist controlling the high ground, just sitting up there uncontested, is going to do when a Winston dives him, right? Of course he's going to punch you there, right? This is going to lead to kind of, like, a really, very, like, poorly operable bubble here. And I like that you wait for the sleep to go through. But also, like, see how he's getting healed? Do you think that, you know, if you had been able to save bubble, if you had been able to pressure out the carry, do you think that the pamphlets aren't going to Doomfist if you are in somebody else's face, right? Same kind of deal as Diva, right? Does the follow-up go onto your Ana? You can't defense matrix the Doomfist punches onto your Ana, but you can defense matrix the spare soldier bullets that are going on top of him. So we change our approach here on how we dodge so that we don't get punched off, but we are still going to get punched, right? Slows us down, forces us to leap out. We still haven't opted to, like, you know, kind of do longer setups here through tunnels, and we haven't also chosen to just ignore the Doom and just leap past all of them, like onto the objective or onto this Mega. We are in a position where we've got several angles on us, and we spend a little bit too long trying to figure out where we got to go next. You can really be anywhere you would like, right? But getting punched into those places are really tough. Kind of unfortunate that there's not very clear communication between us and our Ana, but, you know, solo queue ranked, you know, what else are you going to do? I like your commitment onto the Doom here. Don't get punched off the ledge. You play this out really nicely, but you're also, again, you're getting punched, stopped, like, focused by the Doom. You're the one who has put yourself on him as well, right? And then here we are in a forward position, having to leap out that space that they now have available to manipulate here, right? Okay, so for this one, turn and leap onto the Genji. Since you guys are looking to control the objective and capture it, you guys want to play for your conditions. Take a little more time in between your right-clicky charge up and your right-clicky release for those charge shots. Really important that that you land those not only for ultimate generation but for kill confirmations. And yeah, so since you guys want to capture the objective and the Genji's blade is a condition that they can use to prevent the capture of that objective, you want to thwart that condition there, right? And that's another great example, right? That's an obvious instance of, like, the Genji being a target that is worth more focusing than the Doom, right? But I also don't think that you're finding opportunities, like, in some of these neutral fights to look at anyone other than the Doom. I don't like that bubble there, by the way, because now you're going to have very many options for your next bubble. Now, you could leap onto the high ground, play out this position here, go inside the stairs where the Genji actually ends up being. That way you're not on the low ground here, and the Genji comes out to you as opposed to you being able to jump the Genji if you just left high ground and then went inside to wait for your bubble regeneration. But also, if you don't have a bad bubble main in the first place, then you are able to have a bubble for later down the road. Oh, he's Korean! And very nice primal onto the Ashe there, by the way. Make sure you're getting plenty of reps on the in the practice range and Vaxta, whatever, on the primal mechanics. It's just one of the most important parts of Monkey to be really proficient on. Overall, nice take. Not aggressive enough. Not enough of the map being used. Not enough control over Megabacks being taken. Not enough consideration for the counterplay that Doomfist wants to engage into you, right? You mentioned getting hard diff. You're not getting hard diff. If we look at the stats, right, which stats are very meaningless, right? There's actually a couple of videos that I'll have on the channel that talk about how meaningless stats are. And I like that bubble, by the way, how it blocks off his healing, how it isn't something that is based on you dueling the Doomfist, right? You just drop this bubble, right? And the Doomfist happen to be there. See how you're not having to look at the Doom? And again, he's not diffing you. He's just counterplaying you. And that's because you are standing right in front of him, eager to be counterplayed when there's other things to do. Dive on the Ashe here. What are we waiting for? Dive on the Ash. I mean, you don't want to get caught out here by cover, but see how like she ends up moving onto you, you get coach gone out of your bubble, and then you don't even stay in your bubble, and she's playing in a position where it's easy for her to get healed, right? And then you just overstay your welcome. Stay in your bubble there as well, right? And that way you can just poke her down, because honestly, all that you want to be doing is building your ult there, right? You don't have to get that pick. That's not the condition to winning this fight, is getting the kill on the Ash, right? So stay high ground, stay in your bubble, have bubbles that are a little more meaningful, right? Although you had a really meaningful one on the Doomfist there. And again, the Doomfist isn't diffing you. You're in your head about this one. In game, you're probably in your head. Out of the map, as you post the replay code asking for help, you're probably in your head, right? And it's easy for me to sit here and be like, oh, well, you're letting the Doomfist counterplay you, right? Without doing the hour-long VOD review where we break down kind of like everything that is happening. But like you even went through this and you mentioned, right? You even see that some of your positions are really not as good as they could be. They don't lead to positions that are as accessible as you would like. They don't lead to damage that is as significantly, to timings that are poor, like when you and your Sombra timinged each other, right? On your out and your in, right? With the D.Va defense matrix. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is all kind of fine. I think you want to be jumping around the outside of the arena a little bit more. I think you want to be collecting a little more intel as you make your decisions. That's amazing that you guys cap there, because you really want to be playing for your primal, right? So you're not playing not to be engaged in the fight, but to build your ult so that you can go and like conclusively win it. Yeah, it's really tough. I would love to talk about like all the options that you have here, and there's only so much that we can talk about. Rough bubble into a rough leap. You're not like leaping to walls, corners, covers. It feels like there's not really much of a consideration of like where you are leaping will take you after you've leapt there, right? And that was the case on D.Va to like boosters as well. Like, okay, where do you go after you leap here and place your bubble, right? You have this back corner, but this is you moving backwards and then moving backwards again, right? Is this operable space? And honestly, is moving backwards here conducive to you living? You leapt out to live, right? But if it's actually always safer in than out, then shouldn't you be leaping to the Mega and then slinking around to the shadows here while the Doomfist kills the rest of your team, they reset, and then you leap in to start a disruption engage here? Are you dying with your ultimate as well when at a time when like living is more important? No. You can definitely afford to die because your team is like stuck at the choke here. So you guys, honestly, it's really not a bad thing for you to die here. But also you had your ult. Did you need to leap out, right? It's too passive. It's a little too defensive in nature. I think that you could be going further in. And honestly, if you go far enough in, they're gonna stop looking at you or stop being able to see you, right? And from there, you can find health packs or just slowly regen. By the way, you peek this Bastion here on this angle when like really you should be peeking and then leaping right onto the high ground, and then that way the Doom isn't jumping into your core, or if he is, right, he's getting blown up by your team while the rest of their team looks at you. If you leap onto this high ground, right, up on that upper left that the Bastion was just on top of, right, does he bother shooting you? That's a really nice bubble, by the way, and I like these leaps as well. Probably primal here, actually. Yeah. The policy is if you have it, use it with your ultimates, right? So I really don't mind ripping the primal as soon as you can. This is another instance of like where we're moving, but we're not moving. We looked at that a little bit as D.Va a second ago, and here we are doing the same thing like 2 consecutive times. You also charge the Doom, right? So if he kills your team, that's on you. If he kills you, it's kind of deserved. Primal at like any point here, right? Now you're gonna get nanoed, and I know that people don't really like the nano primal, even though nano primal isn't like actually that bad at all. I like them working in the melees there as well. But you just out this primal, you're back on the Doom. But like you know that there are other targets to be shooting, right? You hear the Bastion, right? You know that the Sojourn is back out. I do like that the timing works out for the Sojourn to get antied, right? But you could also be primaling like much sooner, right? Before the Bastion goes for his shift, before the Kiri goes for her Kitsune rush cast, right? And those might not mean much in this scenario, but they might be a huge difference in another one. We are bouncing from topic to topic, and again, I would love to spend a lot more time on some of the elements of this VOD review, mainly because we are going to start managing to reach into some really high-level concepts, such as the relationship between the objective, where it starts, where it ends during some of these fights that finish, some of the options that you have as far as the interactions and the counterplay that you have against Doomfist. Actually, in these short VODs, I don't get the opportunity to talk about how we play according to 3 matchups. In fact, in this big whole VOD recording session that I've had the last couple of hours, powers. I haven't had the opportunity to mention you're always playing according to the 3 rule sets. So that is your hero, who are you playing, your matchup, who are you playing against, and the composition, and what are you playing with, right? And this kind of composition, this kind of backline, if it dies to Doom, it has to tacitly accept it, right? So again, it's not about trading backlines, because that's not how you have to see it, right? But you can be in positions where you're the only thing that you're doing or able to do. You can play positions where you can do more than just protecting your backlines. Because, like, look at you on the Doom, turned around for, like, while the rest of red team all feeds into the spot that you just left from, right? And now you're playing KDA Diva instead of dying on top of the objective, generating your ultimate against targets that, or denying space that, that want to control it. So, anyways, you can't help your Ana. You can't help your Ana. The rules of the matchup are that Doomfist really doesn't mind if he's punching through a Diva defense matrix onto an Ana, right? If you're not going to eat those punches yourself, then why turn onto your supports who are eating them for you, right? Careful, you just aren't going to be able to do the damage that you need to be able to secure a pick here, because there's too much healing. I like your occupation of the high ground here. It's just a little bit poorly timed. It's way too early for your team, and it's way too late after you have already kind of peaked, taken damage, been marked, and from there they kind of figured out how they wanted to counter you. So totally understandable to lose that footing there. But that is going to be. You just want to play that out a little bit slower. Do constant little spins, 360s. Do you know where everyone is at all times, right? Doomfist is counterplaying you because he doesn't want you to contest the objective, so I like this dedication onto the Juno that you have, dropping onto the cart to make sure that it stops. We probably could have talked about other opportunities that you have to contest the objective, and you'd probably be able to contest the objective a little easier if you contest it at certain points along this trek while you have access to the height instead of at this choke point as if you're a Reinhardt, right, or a Sigma. But ultimately, there's a lot of things to get distracted by, and so again, I think that going back to the rule sets, I think that the way to like be a little less distracted is like go over some of these rule sets, right? So you're looking at okay, I'm playing Diva into Doomfist, Bastion, Juno, Kiri, right? But that also, what does that mean? Well, it means that Juno, Kiri can't heal anybody if my defense matrix is eating their projectiles, and Bastion and Sojourn can't shoot me to hurt my mech that eats their projectiles if I'm also standing in front of them, right? So you find the point that all 4 of those targets are in front of you, and the Doomfist isn't, right? Or Doomfist is already punched in, or whatever else, right? Okay. And there's also positions that could make this more clear. I think in general, you're opting for positions that are like safer, more defensive. You're leaping from positions that are more defensive to positions that are even more defensive or like more peely, honestly, but from which you won't have any offensive options. So by the time you want to go aggressive again, you're kind of out of options there. Careful about the amount of damage that you're taking. Be really sensitive to that, especially as the rest of your team is taking damage here. I like this leap. Nice tether onto a couple of different targets there. Make sure you're playing your walls, corners, covers. You're a little open here, and that's okay. But yes, I like this moving up, and then meeting the Sojourn and the Kiri over here. Let Doomfist punch your team. You understand that you have a job to do. Bubble off the Bastion. Take his spam. Get the pick there is really, really excellent. And that's okay, right? Your team dies to Doomfist. But again, as Diva, you wouldn't have been able to do anything about that anyways, right? So that's A-okay. That's A-okay. Now, you could probably be jumping around to high ground a little bit more. You might be able to use the Mega Pack instead of dropping the Sojourn and the Kiri there, right? Jump to the Mega and then wrap your way all the way around behind them. You always have a little bit more time than you think that you do in these kinds of scenarios. We're now back on the Diva with a really nice defense matrix. This is one of those defense matrices that I really, really like, actually. And then a little unfortunate, we just aren't going to be able we just don't have the mag, the resources to do this. Overwatch is about advantages and disadvantages. By now, you guys have incurred enough disadvantages to really not have the best options that you need for the fights that really matter. That's really tough. Because again, I don't think that you're actually getting diffed here. I think that you are just I think that you are letting the Doomfist engage in the counterplay that he really wants to engage against you in, instead of just playing according more comfortably to the rules that your character plays by, right? So that is Diva doesn't defense matrix, Doom punches, right? But again, you're not getting diffed by him. So ultimately, at the end of the day, be more confident, because that's going to help you play more aggressively and less passively. And playing defensive is great, right? I am myself a defensively oriented. Well, I don't even know if I can say that in good faith anymore. But be confident in yourself, because at the end of the day, that's going to help you have some of the best options, and play as aggressive as you need to unlock some of those options. Your DPS died 17, 19, and 15 times. And I'm just curious, when you've got yourself with 41, and then compared to the rest of your team, 33, 33, 26, 31, right? That's all a lot lower. But you have the Sojourn and this Doomfist here, who are 45, 42, 13, and 10. Does it look like two of the units on their team were pretty closely synergized? And does it look like one of the units on your team did not really understand how to help the rest of their team? And I'm not looking to say that the outcome of this match is on you. There's no reason we should be dying as Ana 15 times against a Doomfist when we are playing a character that broken, right? But at the end of the day, is Ana dying because Sojourn is shooting her after she gets punched because there isn't a D.Va defense matrix in front of the Doom, or there isn't a healing bubble dropped on top of her because it got dropped in a choke point that we didn't need to worry about dropping it in because we could have just chosen to not take damage in that choke point in the first place, either by pathing differently or peeking at different times, right? Oh man, I really want to dig in and take a longer look at this VOD review, but we simply don't have the time. With the sun now coming up and my voice giving out, and one more recording that I have to do to batch upload today. I know YouTube really doesn't like that as well, so I really got to space these out a little bit better. I really want to get more into it, but that's again, that's just not something that we'll be able to do. For those of us who are interested, we will soon be an option as a premium service to go really in depth into some of these scenarios, these rule sets, these core principles, and how they apply to pretty much all of the elements of the game. But for these short form or shorter videos, this one's actually a long one because this was a 25-minute game where we are only able to like bounce from kind of from we're only able to bounce from like bullet point to bullet point in these loosely connected bubbles that I'm kind of loosely connecting by be confident, stop playing as passive, play a little more aggressive, right? Open up your angles, play positions that are a little bit different from the positions you were in last time. Use 80% of the map instead of 20% of the map. Start your fights on high ground, and also don't believe that you have to be in front of your team as the tank. You can be anywhere you want on this map, in front of anyone. And honestly, oftentimes you really don't want to be over engaged with the enemy tank. You want to be, especially on these characters that like are everywhere all at once at all times, as D.Va, or who really don't benefit from shooting the tank as much as they do other characters like Winston, right? You want to be on those targets instead. So playing according to your rule sets, again, this is all stuff I'd love to go into, but that's going to be for longer videos. For these kinds of shorter videos, a huge shout out actually goes to the people who submit these replay codes to for observation. This one is going to be Spray, the low mid masters tank D.Va Winston player, that again really just needs to be confident. You made it this far, right? And I understand that playing tank is very stressful. Everyone's looking at you at all times. That's your enemies and your allies. But at the end of the day, you really just need to play according to your rules. And I'd be happy to take another look at another VOD sometime, maybe at the mid-season, and more clearly outline what some of those rules really look like. But also with the benefit of hindsight and the replay viewer, and anything sounds bad when you string words in a certain order, it's also very easy to see that you really can't defense matrix the Doom punches, right? And we'll start with there, right? Start with simple, the simplest, most boring, mundane observations we can, and let that be the information that we operate on. I have a couple of other longer videos out there. Not all of them have to do with the characters that we all play, but all of them have some of the same universal insights and feedbacks that we're going to get. They go a little bit more into detail. Hopefully you can get a little more insight from those. At least for this one, guys, if you enjoyed the content, found it educational, entertaining, or insightful, then feel free to leave a like or subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing more of this content as we go along, and hopefully experience a little bit of growth as well. For those of us who are interested in some of the longer VOD reviews, more information on that is going to be available here relatively soon. And in the meantime, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Spray for submitting the replay code. Hopefully this was at least a little bit helpful, although there's definitely plenty more to talk about. Guys, have a wonderful rest of the day. Be good to each other. Be fair to yourselves, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.